I told myself the same story about money for 40 years. And here's the thing that nobody warns you about: my bank account believed every single word of it. I came to this country with almost nothing. I survived things that should have broken me. I was the strong one, the one who always found a way. So when I talked about money, I thought I was just being realistic, being smart, keeping my feet on the ground. But I was not being realistic. I was rehearsing, saying the same lines about lack and fear and not enough over and over until they stopped being a fear and then started being a script. Because there is a difference between surviving a hard season and rehearsing the same hard season for the rest of your life. And nobody ever once showed me where the first one ended and the second one begun. Because scarcity is not just a number in a bank account, it is a script. It is a set of lines that you have repeated so many times that you mistake them for the truth. And I have been running mine for so long that I could not even hear it anymore. It just sounded like my own voice. So let me tell you who I'm talking to. I am talking to the woman whose scarcity was taught to her, not chosen, it was handed down. The survival wiring that kept your family alive in a hard time and then just never got switched off, even years after the emergency was over. I'm talking to the woman who still braces for the worst, even in a good month, who feels guilty spending $1 on herself, who hears the word "we cannot afford it" in a voice that sounds exactly like her mother coming out of her own mouth about things that she can actually afford now. And let me be very clear about something, because I will not lie to you. This is not about pretending that you are rich. This is not some nonsense about thinking happy thoughts until money falls out of the sky. The bills were real. The hard years, they were real. Some of that scarcity was the plain, honest truth. This is about the one part you actually get to control: the voice, the script, the story that has been narrating your whole life in the background, quietly making your decisions for you before you even get a say. And this video is about finally turning around and asking that voice a simple question: who taught you to talk like that? So, quick aside, I have to tell you that I am not a financial advisor. This is just my story, because the voice inside your own head, that one is yours, and you can start on it today. So, here is the first question, and I want you to really sit with it. Where did your money story even come from? Because I promise you this, you did not write it, you inherited it. And I can prove it. So, think about the lines you grew up hearing. In my house in Haiti in the 1980s, the language of money was survival language. We said, "Comme la faiselle," the money grew wings, because that is exactly what it did. It flew out of your pocket the moment that it landed, and you just watched it go. We said, "Sac vide pas camper," an empty bag cannot stand up, meaning you cannot expect anything from a person who has nothing in them. And when somebody asked when a debt would be paid back, when things would finally get better, the answer was, "Let's see pour feda," when cheeks grow teeth. Never. Relief itself was a joke we told, because hoping out loud, it was too expensive. And layered on top of all of it, the line that followed me across the ocean and ran my entire life here: you have to be twice as good to get half as far. Every single one of those lines was survival. The people who taught them to me were not wrong for their time. They were protecting me with the only tools that they had. A scared voice kept a lot of us alive. And my confession is that I carried those exact lines across an entire ocean. I came to a country with more opportunity than I had ever seen in my life. And I brought the scarcity script with me, packed right there in my suitcase. I worked twice as hard. I braced for loss. I said, yes, we cannot afford it, about things that I had already earned, because the script did not know that we had moved. It was still running the old country in the old emergency. And I want to name the heaviest line of all, the twice as good line, because it deserves its own moment. It was true when I first learned it. In a lot of the places I had been, I really did have to be twice as good just to be seen at all. But here's the trap inside it, a survival rule that was true. And the fire does not just switch itself off the moment that you finally climb out of the fire. So I kept paying that twice as good tax for decades, exhausting myself to earn a seat that I was already sitting in. The rule kept me alive once, and then it just kept me tired. So hear this. You did not choose the script, but at 50 years old, you are finally old enough and awake enough to notice that you are reading from one. And you cannot rewrite a script that you cannot even hear. But the script does not just sit there quietly in the background. That would be fine. The problem is what the script does to you because it runs your whole life. So, why does a smart woman keep making the broke choice? That is the question that hunted me because I was not careless, I was not lazy. And here is the ugly part that I finally had to face. Rehearsing broke does not keep you broke by some kind of magic. It keeps you broke by making 1,000 tiny decisions on your behalf before you ever get a single vote. And the script is the reason that you do not apply for the thing. Why would they ever pick me, you say? It is the reason you do not ask for the raise. Or you price yourself far too low because who am I to charge that? It is the reason that you do not put the $20 away because what is the point? It is only $20. It is the reason that you brace instead of build. And it is the reason that when something good finally shows up in your life, you cannot trust it. So you quietly find a way to push it away before it can live on its own. And my confession is that I have talked myself right out of rooms that I belonged in. And I mean that literally. There were people that I never even tried to reach, doors that I never knocked on, because I had already decided that I did not have the qualifications. That access was for someone else, somebody who looked the part. Because when you grow up reading money off of how people look and present themselves, you start guessing who belongs where. And I always guessed myself out. But here's a strange gift buried inside my hardest season. When I first came to this country and I truly had nothing left to lose, a daring came over me. And I remember thinking, I do not have the luxury of being distracted by any belief, any person, or anything that will stop me from changing my situation. So I would set my eye on a job and then go straight at it. I did not have time to assess who belonged and who did not. I wanted it. I went for it. And doors opened that the script swore were locked. So I have lived on both sides of my own voice, and I can tell you the doors did not change. Only the sentence in my head did. And maybe for you, it was never a client or a price. Maybe it is the raise that you never asked for, the salary that you accepted without a single counter because you were grateful they picked you at all. The promotion that you did not apply for because you only had most of the qualifications. Or the no that you still cannot say when a grown child asks you for money again. Different rooms, same script, same voice, voting no on your behalf. Now, let me give you the smallest example because it is the one that stings the most. There was a time that I saw an opportunity, something that I actually truly wanted. And I felt myself get excited about it. And do you know what I did with that excitement? I killed it on purpose. I found every single reason it would never work before it even had a chance to try. And I called that being realistic. It was not realistic. It was the script protecting me from a disappointment. It was completely certain that the disappointment was coming. It would rather I never tried at all than risk that I might get hurt. That is not caution. That is a cage with a very nice name painted on the front of it. So I want you to hear me. The story is not just describing your life, it is making your decisions. And a decision made by fear in the dark before you even wake up in the morning is not really your decision at all. So, how do you stop reading from a script that you have been performing for 40 years? You do not throw the whole thing out at once. You just change one sentence. So, can you actually change a voice that has been running for 40 years? Here's the honest answer, and it surprised me. No, and also yes, because here is what took me 40 years to learn. You cannot delete the old voice, it is not going anywhere. But you can add a new voice right next to it. And over time, with practice, you can make the new one louder. And it starts with the actual words, tiny changes. When you say, I cannot afford it, that is a cage. It means you are powerless. It is being done to you. So you change it to, that is not where my money is going right now. Say that one out loud. And then you feel the difference, right? One feels like a prison, the other is a decision. Same exact bank account, a completely different woman saying it. So when you say, I am just bad with money, you are handing yourself a life sentence. So you change it to, I was never taught this, and I am learning it now. One closes the door forever. The other one says the door was never even locked. And let me be honest with you about the line that I still catch myself saying today at 50 years old. It is too expensive. That one survived everything. And now every time I hear it come out of my mouth, I have learned to stop and ask myself one question. Is it actually too expensive? Or do I just believe somewhere deep down that I do not deserve it? Because sometimes the answer really is that it costs too much, and that is fine. But listen to this. Over 18 years ago, before my son was even born, I bought a KitchenAid mixer for $250. Real money for me at that time. The script screamed, and that mixer is still only on my counter today, working 18 years later. Meanwhile, the $20 version that I once grabbed from a store, broken, is in a recycling somewhere. So I do not shop the price anymore. I shop for quality. The cheap thing that you buy 5 times is not cheap. The script just does the math wrong on purpose. And my confession is that the very first time I changed one of these sentences out loud, it felt like a lie to me. It felt fake and clumsy in my mouth. And I have a short video where I talk about this exact thing, your money story, and how it goes from broke to in charge. Watch it right after this one, because that little shift is the whole entire beginning. So I want you to take this with you. The words that you use about money, they are not describing your life. They are writing it every single day. So choose them like they matter, because they really do. And if you're ready to stop rehearsing a story that somebody else handed you and start writing one that is actually your own story, then subscribe and stay right here with me. Because this whole channel is a 50-year-old woman rewriting the script out loud in real time so that you know it can be done at any age at all. There is nothing wrong with you, and you belong here. But a sentence written down on paper is not enough, not yet, because the script only truly changes when you say the new line out loud in the exact moment that it counts. Now, do you want to know where the rewrite actually happens? Because it is not where I thought. It is not on a page. It is not in your head at 2 o'clock in the morning. It happens in the real moment, out loud, with your heart pounding. Let me show you mine. It happened the moment that someone asks you your price for your services, and you say the higher number, and you do not flinch, and you do not apologize for it after. It happens the moment a good thing shows up. And instead of bracing for it to be taken, you let yourself say, maybe this one is allowed to stay. It happens the moment you let yourself want something out loud in front of another human being without shrinking down to make it smaller. And now let me tell you the story that taught me this, because I paid full tuition for it. I once took a client project, and out of desperation for the money, I priced it far too low. I did not sit down and do the math. How many hours will this take? And am I being compensated for my time? None of that. So the scarcity script made the decision, and the script does not use logic. The script used fear. And then the work grew. They kept asking for things that were outside the scope. And I was practicing my boundaries by then. So each time I would say, hey, that is out of scope, and here is what it would cost. And every single time, the answer was the same. We do not have the money for that. We do not have the money. And then, while they were telling me they had no money, they turned around and signed a very expensive contract with a man they had never worked with, a stranger who came highly recommended and promised them six figures with this marketing magic. I cautioned them and I told them plainly, nobody can guarantee you that. They thanked me for my concern and they handed him the money anyway. The money that never existed when it was time to pay me. And I felt this hole open up in my stomach because I was the one actually getting them results. It went exactly the way that you think it went. He lost their money, no return, nothing. And then they came back to me to fix the mess that he left behind. And that is where I finally drew the line and said no. Because here's what that whole experience taught me. And I want you to write this down. If you do not value yourself, no one will. You teach people how to treat you. I had taught them from day one with my own desperate price that I was the bargain. So when I finally stood up and asserted my value, they could not see it because I had trained them not to. And it taught me one more thing. And this connects what I said in another video, that time is the one asset that you cannot make more of. If a project takes you 40 hours, it takes 40 hours. The woman who charges $350 spends those 40 hours. The woman who charges $8,000 spends the same 40 hours. The only difference is what she believed her hours were worth. So I will never compete on price with anyone. That is a race to the bottom, and the bottom always has room for one more. So if somebody wants the $350 version, they can go with God. That client was never my audience, and their choice does not change my price. And if you have never sent an invoice in your life, hear me. This is still your story because you have priced yourself too. Every time you accepted less than you were worth at a job, in a relationship, at a family table where your needs always went last, the number was different. The transaction was the same. So you taught people what you would take. And starting today, you are allowed to raise your rate. And notice what actually changed in that moment. It was not the money, not yet. Saying the new sentence did not make me richer that afternoon. It made me into someone who could ask. And the asking is the same thing that eventually changes the money. You become the woman first. The account catches up to her after. So hear this, because it is the whole thing. You do not wait until you believe the new story to start saying it. You say it in the real moments until you believe it. You act your way into the new voice. That is how a 40-year-old script finally gets rewritten. One brave sentence said out loud at a time. So before you go, hold on to a few things. Number one, the scarcity script was inherited, not chosen. It was survival. You can think it and still decide to change it. And number two, rehearsing broke. It keeps you broke by making your decisions for you in the dark before you even wake up. Number three, you cannot delete the old voice, but you can write a new sentence and say it out loud until it becomes true. And the one underneath all of them, the story running in your head, was never fact. It was just the loudest voice in that room. So let me leave you with this. That old story, the one that you've been rehearsing for 40 years, it was never the truth. It was just the voice that got here first. The one that talked the longest and the loudest. until you finally stop questioning it. That voice, it kept you alive once in a real emergency. So do not hate it. Thank it. It did its job well in that season. And then at 50 years old, you get to do something that voice never once thought was possible. You get to be louder than it. You get to pick up the pen it has been holding your entire life and finally write a sentence of your very own. So starting over at 50 years old is not really about the money in the account. It is about who is holding the pen. And for the first time in your life, that is you. And that is a second birth. All right. So for those of you just meeting me, I am Webley. I make videos for women who are starting the whole thing over on their own terms at an age the world told them was far too late. So now tell me in the comments, what is one old money sentence that you are ready to stop rehearsing? And then write the new one right here out loud where all of us can see it. I read every single one of your comments, and I will see you in the next one.